Alright, Shalom. I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem Yahushai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadash. Double honor to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Salutation to all the brothers and the few sisters out there. Also, like foreigners from the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Shalom in the Hebrew, which means peace. Nate going off again. So I'm just going to get into it.
Black people started protesting. So now what they're doing, they said, oh, well, Black Pete really isn't black. He's really white. And when he goes out a chimney, he gets a little dirt on his face. See that? No more black face. So now when you look at pictures, you see white people having just a little smudging of brown color on their face. They said it's the chimney dust. But that's why you got to look back at the origin of these things. So read that again, Captain Yuri.
Yes, sir. Revelation chapter 13 and verse 10. It's 11 verse 10. Yeah, and they that dwell upon the...
I'm gonna stop it right there because he said, I don't care what he said about the chimney and all that. That don't make no sense. But look at the precept that he's bringing out to convey his message. Right?
Shall rejoice over them and make merry.
Merry Christmas.
And shall send gifts one to another.
They made us.
It's 11 verse 10.
Yeah.
And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry.
Merry Christmas.
And shall send gifts one to another.
They made us the gifts. They sold our sons, gave our sons and daughters away, right?
Because these two prophets,
Judah and Israel,
tormented them that dwelt on the earth.
So Christmas has always been a celebration of destruction.
That has nothing to do with fucking Christmas, yo. That has absolutely nothing to do with Christmas. You can't use that. He broke it down correctly. What it was what we call the transatlantic slave trade. Just because it said marry doesn't make it fit this current demonic holiday. So he just butchered something just to convey nothing. All right, that has nothing to do with fucking Christmas, yo. If he wanted to, he should have broke it down in depth. He should have went to the true origin. But he was just trying to feel a lot. This guy is he just be winging shit too much, man. And he's doing this without really no feedback. Like nobody, come on, these guys that was sitting up there, they should have known better. All right, you talk about Christmas, you bring out there's other scriptures. Talk about Jeremiah 10 and 1. All right, it talks about chopping down a tree and all this other stuff, because that goes back to the Babylonian custom. Okay, you could easily talk about this shit, but he used. Let me go into it, man, because this guy is just fucking weird, yo. That's just a weirdo way of just breaking something down that has nothing to do with anything. Revelation 11. I start at 8. Now you could say, oh, but he's talking about Israel using the customs, but it's not. That's not Jeremiah. I mean, that's not Revelations. Revelation is 11 and 8, right? It says, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city. Now, who is it talking about? Israel. All right, this whole chapter, when you read Revelations from 1 on down, and specifically going into Israel, people that's outside of Israel, the history of Israel, all right, how great prophets was amongst Israel. I mean, it's a heavy, beautiful breakdown of our history, the two kingdoms, all right, which was getting into two particular men, but it gets the representation of the kingdoms, which is the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. So then when you come down here, it said, and their dead bodies shall lie in a great city, that street of the great city, It's talking about the current, present time, which is America. And what makes us dead, us not knowing who we are. All right, we're dead to our history. Says it was in Proverbs, congregation of the dead. Proverbs 21:16. It says, "The man that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead." So our people don't have no sort of understanding. They don't know who they are. Hosea 1:4-6. It says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. So our people have no knowledge. They don't have knowledge of self, like how they'll say in the streets. There's no knowledge of self. All right, all it is, Jake just go by what they believe is their culture. Now there was a Apostle Gabar had did a video response of Apostle Tahar when he did a response of Captain Crunch, I call him. I'm just gonna call him by his title because he's nothing. But he went to, I forgot who he went to. It was another Jake. He don't believe in anything, but he was talking about that how Jake don't have a culture, and the guy was upset. Like, what do you mean black people don't have a culture? He said, and he broke it down, music and everything like that, because technically that's a part of your culture. That's music, food, that these are part of cultures. But what makes a culture is your worship, your laws, your statutes, your commandments. All right. Even the heathens, they have their laws. They got their religion and belief. If you go look at Jake, which Jake is just a short term of saying Israel. If you look at Jake, you will see that Jake has everything but a stable religion. All right, a stable worship. They worship everything. They go into church, different churches, different philosophies, different belief. That's not originally intended for us as a people. Yet when you tell these people these things, they're lost. So they're in the congregation of the dead. They lack understanding. This is why the Lord always called our people foolish. And Jake just don't seek the Lord. They'll go to church. They'll say they're Christians, but they don't read the scriptures. And if they do read the scriptures, they don't have no understanding of the scriptures. So they don't understand anything. They don't understand what they're supposed to keep. They will still eat shrimp, crab, lobster, commit adultery, and so forth. Where you're not even supposed to do that. I was thinking about the Italians. The Italians, despite how the Italian mob, despite how wicked they intend to do, there's a certain rule that they go by that goes back to our code, our laws, statutes, and commandments, and that is you're not supposed to sleep with another man's wife. Well, they don't really fully, but they'll sleep with anybody else but amongst a circle. You're not supposed to sleep with another man's wife, period. Okay? But that was just part of their culture, their laws that they keep among themselves. Anybody that sleeps with another man's wife, I'm just using an example. That's not the greatest example for a murderous organization, but they still somewhat have some of organization, so to speak. So they have some sort of, and they fully into Christianity, some of them. But just using that as an example, niggas in the streets, there was a time when niggas won't do certain things. Now a nigga would do everything. So he was somewhat right, but it's all about going to culture. I believe Apostle Gabar had to look up the word. It's not cultivate. It's cruel or something like that. but it just means worship. All right, is to worship. So Jake just worship anything. So that means that they lack of knowledge. Because if they knew better, they were supposed to know better. All right, they would know not to worship every fucking thing under the sun. Now, as we go into this bullshit season, as always, we bring up the facts of how it's a false doctrine. Right? That's our job. We supposed to. That's what we supposed to do. Because you still have people out there really worshiping this tradition of men. Second Corinthians 10:4. It says, "For the weapons of our warfare is not carnal, but mighty through pulling down of the strongholds." Which is pulling down the strongholds is the tradition that's given. So our job is to pull it down. How? By breaking the scriptures down, telling you, bringing out the facts. Now, some of the facts that he's bringing out is true, but he's misleading the congregation because it's just one word: marry. All right, that's what he like what the fuck? It says, casting down imagination and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of the Most High, and bring into captivity every thought to the obedience of Yahushua. So our job is to bring Jake back, and our job technically is just to push this word out, not to do anything. You can't make these people that can't accept the truth accept it. So our job is just to put this word out there, and not pulling down the stronghold, doing the research properly, and breaking these things down, all right? And through the scriptures, breaking it down correctly, using the word skillfully, not deceitfully. So what he did was some deceitful shit, as always. It says, "And a dead body shall lie in the street of the great city," which is America, all right? Because if you go into the history, whatchamacallit, Christmas was not a national holiday until, I believe, which president that made it a national holiday, because it was not a thing in America that was fully accepted, because it's paganism. Okay, let me see if I could get that. And this is what we do. Let me see if I can find it. Nope, not that. In America, that's what I wanted. It says Christmas was first celebrated in the territory of the future U.S. by the Spanish explorers in Florida in 1539. Hernando de Soto's expedition, but the first recorded English colony Christmas was at Jamestown in 1607. Though the celebration were small and varied, the Puritans even banning it wasn't until the mid 19th century that the tradition, like the trees and gift giving, grew popular. It became a federal holiday in 1870. I think this is under Lincoln. So it wasn't a thing that was fully out there, all right, here in America. So they knew better. It says federal holiday right here. It says Congress made Christmas a federal holiday in United States June 26, 1870. So even in that sense, and it wasn't, if I'm not mistaken, it goes further than that, because the retailers just trying to make money off of it. So even in that sense, you could tell, like, this thing wasn't a thing where it was truly celebrated like that. They had to federalize it. Okay? It says, which is spiritually called Sodom, which is America. All right? Sodom is known for what? I mean, the quite obvious. With homosexuality, the bestiality, and so forth. And Egypt. So America spearheads the spirit of Babylon, confusion, a land of confusion. It is America's everything mixed in one. This is why Christmas is a thing, all right, here in America, because it picks up all tradition of ungodly customs that the heathens were doing. And it says, where also our Lord was crucified. Now, our Lord was crucified by his image being a so-called white man, that his word became watered down and so forth. Because he wasn't crucified here in the shores of America, but his teaching and everything was. Jeremiah 10, proving it. I gotta, back it up. It says 10:2. Thus saith the Lord, lean not in the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. So they study the stars, they study the eclipse, they study everything. They move a certain way. Okay? That's what these heathens do. They go by certain things. I didn't even know till somebody had put it up. I don't know what sign it is. I think it's the guy that's a half horse, half man, whatever. And they said this is where they do a lot of sales, which is true. That's during September. Some odd reason, I always remember like albums coming out. It's always around the fall time. It's like the fall is the beginning of a sale period. But they equate that to making money. So they study the stars. They know exactly what it is. And here it is. If you go by the way the wording of the months, like December, if you break down December, it's supposed to be the 10th month. But according to the calendar, it's the 12th month. Right? For some odd reason. December, or I believe it means, 10th. September goes back to 7. October, 8. November, I don't know what the fuck they got November from. But, so they just, everything's upside down. Alright? I believe it's Pope Gregory. I think he mentioned, no, Pope Gregory had changed the time, added 5 more days to the year. That's why you have the 28 days in February, but every four years is what? The leap year, because the calendar was wacky. So they go by it was going by the Julian calendar, then they went to the Gregorian calendar, which is Daniel's 7 and 25. They give the changing of times and seasons, and that's exactly what they did. But going back to this, it says verse 3. For the customs of the people are vain. From one cut off the tree out of the forest, and the work of his hands of the workman with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold, and they fasten it with nails, with hammers, that it move not. And this goes back. So Jeremiah, he was told this is what they do in that land. What land was that? Babylon. That was a custom that they was doing, because that was idol worshiping of Nimrod. That's where the custom come from. The whole December 25th, I believe it's the pine tree, the evergreen tree, was a representation of Nimrod. This is where the custom come from. Okay? I'm gonna read NLT. It says 3. Their ways are futile and foolish. They cut down a tree and a craftsman carves an idol. They decorate it with gold, silver, then they fasten it securely with hammer and nails, so it won't fall over. Verse 5. Their gods are like the helpless scarecrow in a cucumber field. So scarecrow goes, you see, scarecrow goes all the way back. They cannot speak, they need to be carried because they cannot walk. Do not be afraid of such gods, for they can neither harm you nor do you any good. So that's where the tradition of this bullshit comes from. Okay? So that's why you're supposed to break it down like that. Now, when you go back to Revelations 11 and 9 now, and the day of the kindred, and day of the people and the kindreds and tongues, talking about the other nations, the natural heathens, right? And nations shall see their dead bodies. So they saw our people, Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans in a dead state. All right? And what did they do to us in this dead state that we were in? 3 days and a half for 350 years. Okay, from the bulk of the slaves coming over here. That was when majority of all Israel was here on this side of the hemisphere. It says, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves, which meaning what? Give them rest to know who they are. Remain, keeping them in a docile, keeping us in a dead state. Because what? They benefit from that. They financially benefit from that. Because who goes around spending in these stores? Jake could have a store in their neighborhood, no support, but they go to a heathen. That's what goes back to Luke 16 and 20 or 21, when it speaks of the dog came to lick their wound. And the nations know exactly who we are. So they didn't allow us to rest in peace, so to speak. It says, and they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them. Rejoice over what? Of the slaves. Because a lot of golden eras was created off of the backs of slaves. All right? Where the slaves were Israelites. All right? A lot of golden eras. A lot of these empires were established off of Jake. It says, and make merry. Right? So this guy said, oh, Christmas, right? Merry. It says, gladden, make joyful, to be glad, to be merry, to rejoice in, be delighted with a thing. And what was their delightion? They was making money. All right? They was making money off of the slaves that they purchased. I believe that the Black Friday sale was when it was giving out, they was lowering the prices on slaves. All right? And during this period of time, of course, the slaves were what? They was following the customs of Esau and the other nations, mainly Esau. So this doesn't have nothing to do with fucking Christmas. They was literally making merry off of us because they was making funds off of us. It says, and they sent gifts one to another, which was us. All right, the gifts were us. A certain amount of product that was being shipped off. Tobacco, then what's the other thing? Tobacco, cotton, is another Manila for human cargo. That was the gifts. It wasn't talking about no, let's wrap it up with a bow and tie, put it in a box and put it under the tree. No, that had nothing to do with that. All right, because these two prophets tormented them that dwell on the earth, which represents the northern and the southern kingdom. Going back to the history, this is why they kept our people in a docile state. And after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from the Most High entered into them. So the spirit of life is what? The truth. All right. After the 350 years, around the late 1960s, then the Lord really opened up the minds of Jake to accept the fact that they're Israelites, starting with a man that's name was Abba Bivens, and he went out there to teach. Okay, so he was a forerunner to that spirit of life that came onto our people, and the tradition moved forward from then. It says, and they stood upon their feet. So from the 12 tribes sign, this is the precept to Ezekiel to the 37th chapter. So the 12 tribes sign, all right, men claim knowing who they are, all right, through the spirit, going out in the highways and byways and telling the world who they are. Wisdom of Solomon, the 5th chapter, tells you, then the righteous man shall stand with great boldness to basically made no accounts for our labor. Okay, so even to this very moment, this is a living prophecy right here. So brothers are standing upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. So this is why a lot of these camps are going out there teaching against the grain, because there's a fear. The fear from whom? The fear from the elites. All right. The fear from the elites. So they pay off these guys. You know, when we focus on the prophecies, World War III, Jacob's trouble, MOTB, like heavy, the spirit be heavy on it, all of a sudden Israelite from another camp would do something. I think this by accident, for them to teach this weird doctrine. Nah, that was made to distract. So now the focal point be on the subject of the person that's breaking things down wrong, and then it's like we're not really responding to the prophecies. But guess what? There's so many of us through the spirit of the Lord that's on our watch. So one brother could be actually, I'm just saying, a group of brothers could be on that subject of the false prophet, but other brothers could be strictly on the subject on prophecies, which even when if somebody goes off, that is prophecy. All right. So we always on the grind, always on our feet, and great fear is falling upon these people, because no matter what they do, however they do it, the spirit of the Lord is hammering these devils. All right. And they heard a great voice from heaven, which is a future prophecy, saying, "Come up hither." And they ascended unto heaven when the set destruction takes place. So when you go say certain things, you got to be careful how you break things down. Now you could, like how he did with the whole thing, is like he focused on Christmas with just the word Mary, and it has nothing to do with nothing. The Mary is talking about them rejoicing off of the fact of taking us down. All right, that has nothing to do with the actual Christmas. Just because they say Mary and so forth. Okay, and there's so many different variations of that tradition. It goes from ancient Babylon to the Celtics, well, the Romans, the Celtics, what do you call it again? Those people from the Viking area. Okay, even because when you go into the pine tree, the evergreen tree, you had Odin, you had the pine, the oak. They also go to Zeus. So it got like a whole bunch. It's a whole bunch of shit mixed in one. But for him to do that, man, that's why you gotta watch out for these guys. So with that being said, something real quick through the spirit. Yeah, Revelation 11 and 10 has nothing to do with Christmas. With that being said, shalom to the elected nation. Shalom.